Crack. The sound of the slap echoed through the glass-walled office, like a gunshot. For a moment, time stopped. The entire executive floor of Rivera Tech in downtown Miami froze. Assistants mid-keystroke, executives mid-sentence, security cameras capturing everything. CEO Victoria Lennox stood there, one hand pressed to her reddening cheek, gray eyes wide with shock. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, where her own tooth had cut her lip, and standing in front of her, hands still raised, chest heaving with rage, Daniel Cruz, her VP of Operations, the man she'd trusted for 3 years, the man whose wife had just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, the man she'd just fired. You want to know why I slapped you? His voice cracked, raw and desperate. Because you're not God, Victoria. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies. You don't get to deny my insurance claim and then look me in the eye and tell me it's company policy. Before we continue, please subscribe. We got more amazing stories dropping tomorrow, and please don't forget to like and comment. Security was already rushing toward the office. Victoria raised one hand. Stop. Even as her other hand trembled against her bleeding lip. Daniel, my wife is dying. Tears streamed down his face now. She needs that treatment, and you who have everything. You took away the one thing that could save her. So congratulations, Ms. CEO. You just killed my wife to save your quarterly profit margins. He turned and walked out, shoving past security, leaving Victoria standing in her corner office with floor-to-ceiling views of Biscayne Bay and the taste of blood in her mouth. What no one knew, what Daniel didn't know, what the entire company didn't know, was that 20 minutes ago, Victoria had emptied her personal account to pay for his wife's treatment herself. What no one knew was that the insurance denial wasn't Victoria's decision. It was the board's, and she'd been fighting them for weeks. What no one knew was that Victoria Lennox, the Ice Queen CEO worth $800 million, was about to walk away from everything she'd built to do what was right. 20 minutes. That's all it would take for the truth to come out, for everything to change, for a slap to become the catalyst that exposed the rot at the heart of Rivera Tech and saved more lives than anyone could imagine. 6 hours earlier, Victoria Lennox stood in the Whole Foods on Biscayne Boulevard at 6:47 a.m., staring at organic blueberries like they held the secrets of the universe. She'd been awake since 4:30, running on her Peloton, answering emails from Tokyo and London, reviewing quarterly reports that showed Rivera Tech's medical device division was hemorrhaging money, specifically the insurance division. Ma'am, are you okay? She blinked. A store employee, young, probably college student working morning shift, was looking at her with concern. I'm fine. Just tired. Rough night. Victoria almost laughed. Rough life would be more accurate. 34 years old. CEO at 29. On the cover of Forbes at 31. The woman who revolutionized medical tech. They called her brilliant, ruthless, unstoppable. They didn't know she hadn't slept through a full night in 2 years. Something like that, she said, grabbing the blueberries without looking at the price. When you had Victoria's money, you didn't look at prices. Her phone buzzed. Text from her CFO, Raymond Park. Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. They want to discuss the cruise situation. Come prepared. Victoria's stomach clenched. The cruise situation. That's what they were calling it now. Like it was a PR problem, not a human being dying. At Rivera Tech's headquarters, a gleaming tower in Brickell that Victoria had designed herself, she arrived at 7:15 a.m. to find Daniel Cruz already waiting outside her office. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, shirt wrinkled, the kind of exhaustion that came from spending every night at Jackson Memorial Hospital watching your wife fight cancer. Daniel, you're early. We need to talk. Come in. They sat in her office, all glass and steel and million-dollar views. And Victoria already knew what he was going to say. They denied Carmen's claim. Daniel said, without preamble, the immunotherapy treatment, $340,000. Insurance says it's experimental, not covered. Victoria, without that treatment, she has 6 months. Maybe. I know. I saw the denial yesterday. Then override it. You're the CEO. You can. I can't. The words tasted like ash. The board controls insurance decisions. I've been fighting them for 3 weeks, Daniel. They won't budge. The treatment isn't FDA approved for Carmen's specific cancer type. Company policy says. Policy? His voice rose. My wife is dying, and you're talking about policy? I'm talking about a board that's threatening to fire me if I keep pushing. I'm talking about shareholders who only care about profit margins. I'm talking about a system that's broken, Daniel, and I'm trying to fix it from the inside, but it takes time. Time! He stood, hand shaking. Carmen doesn't have time. I don't have time. And you're sitting here in your glass tower talking about shareholder value, while my wife is in a hospital bed wondering if she'll see our daughter's next birthday. Victoria stood too, heart racing. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been working on something. I don't want your apologies. I want you to do something. I am. Daniel, please, just give me until this afternoon. I'm meeting with the board at 9, and I prepared a proposal that... A proposal? You want me to wait for another meeting? Another PowerPoint presentation. His laugh was bitter, broken. You know what the worst part is? I used to think you were different. I thought you actually cared about people. But you're just like the rest of them. A spreadsheet in a designer's suit. The words hit like physical blows. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? He was yelling now, and people outside were starting to stare. My wife is 36 years old. We have an 8-year-old daughter who asked me this morning if Mommy was going to die. And I had to lie to her because I can't afford to tell her the truth. Daniel, I'm done, Victoria. Done with this company. Done with you. Done pretending that any of this matters when the people I love are suffering. If you walk out that door, you're fired. The board will make sure you never work in this industry again. The threat was automatic, corporate, exactly what the board had told her to say. And the moment it left her mouth, Victoria hated herself. Daniel stared at her. Then fire me. At least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. That's when Victoria made a decision. You're fired. You what? Raymond Park, CFO and Victoria's closest ally on the board, stared at her across the conference table like she'd just announced she was joining a cult. I fired Daniel Cruz. Effective immediately. The 7 board members exchanged glances. James Whitmore, 63, old money, the kind of man who thought compassion was a weakness, leaned forward with a satisfied smile. Finally, I've been saying for weeks that Cruz was a liability. His emotional state was affecting his performance. That's not why I fired him, Victoria interrupted. I fired him so he could spend time with his wife, so he wouldn't have to choose between her bedside and this company, so he could be present for the time she has left. Silence. Victoria, Raymond said carefully, what are you doing? What I should have done 3 weeks ago. She pulled out a folder, slid copies across the table. This is my resignation, effective end of today. And this, another folder, is a comprehensive proposal for reforming our insurance division. Full coverage for experimental treatments. Removal of arbitrary denial policies. Patient advocacy programs. Estimated cost, $12 million annually. $12 million. James sputtered. Have you lost your mind? No, I found it. Victoria's voice was steel. Rivera Tech made $340 million in profit last quarter. We can afford $12 million. We can't afford to let our employees' families die because we're too greedy to help them. This isn't about greed. Another board member, Patricia Chun, brilliant and cold, interjected. It's about fiduciary responsibility. We answer to shareholders. If we start approving every expensive experimental treatment, then we might actually live up to our mission statement. Victoria stood. Rivera Tech, innovation for a healthier tomorrow. Remember that? Or has it just become Rivera Tech? Profit over people? You're being emotional, James said dismissively. I'm being human. Something this board seems to have forgotten how to be. If you resign, we'll replace you by end of week, Patricia said. This proposal dies with your tenure. Then it dies. But at least I'll know I tried. Victoria walked to the door, then stopped. Oh, and one more thing. I've already wired $340,000 from my personal account to Jackson Memorial Hospital. Carmen Cruz's treatment starts tomorrow morning. Consider it my exit bonus. She left them shouting behind her. Sometimes standing up for what's right means losing everything you've built. Sometimes doing the human thing costs you the thing you've worked for your whole life. And sometimes, just sometimes, the price of your principles is worth more than the security of staying silent. If you've ever watched someone in power choose compassion over comfort, if you've ever wondered whether one person can really make a difference against a system designed to crush them, then maybe you understand why Victoria's resignation matters. Why some battles are worth fighting even when you know you'll lose. 10 minutes after the board meeting, Victoria sat in her office, staring at her phone. Daniel hadn't answered any of her calls. Didn't know about the money. Didn't know his wife's treatment was approved. Didn't know Victoria had just sacrificed her career for his family. Her assistant, Maya, knocked softly. Ms. Lennox? Daniel Cruz is here. He says he needs to speak with you. Send him in. Daniel walked in looking like a man at the end of his rope. Face flushed, hands clenched. The rage that came from helplessness. I need to say something. Daniel, you were right to fire me. I wasn't performing. I was distracted. I've been a terrible employee. His voice was bitter self-loathing. But I need to tell you something before I leave. What you did, denying Carmen's claim, it's murder. Corporate murder. And I hope you think about that every time you look at your bank account. Daniel, if you just let me explain. I don't want your explanations. He stepped closer, and Victoria saw something dangerous in his eyes. Desperation. The kind that made people do things they'd regret. I want you to know what you've done. I want you to live with it. And that's when he slapped her. The sound echoed. Blood bloomed on her lip. Security rushed in. Daniel didn't resist, just stood there looking hollow. You don't get to play God, he whispered. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies. Then he was gone, escorted out by security, leaving Victoria alone with her bleeding lip and the truth he didn't know. Victoria sat in her bathroom, pressing tissue to her lip, watching blood bloom red against white. Her phone buzzed constantly, Maya fielding calls, security asking if she wanted to press charges, Raymond texting what the hell just happened. She ignored all of it. Instead, she pulled out her phone and called Jackson Memorial Hospital, asked for the oncology billing department, verified that the payment for Carmen Cruz's immunotherapy had cleared, confirmed treatment start date, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Then she called her lawyer. Victoria, I heard about the board meeting. Are you okay? I'm fine, Marcus. Different Marcus than previous stories. I need you to draft something for me. A foundation. The Rivera Healthcare Advocacy Foundation. I'm putting $50 million into it as seed funding. Its sole purpose is to cover experimental treatments that insurance companies deny. I want it operational by end of month. Silence. Then, Victoria, that's your personal money. Almost a tenth of your net worth. I know. If you resign from Rivera Tech, you won't have that corporate income anymore. $50 million is the right thing to do. Draw up the papers. She hung up, stared at her reflection. The woman in the mirror looked tired, bleeding, but somehow, for the first time in years, alive. Her office door opened. Maya poked her head in. Ms. Lennox? There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Her name is Carmen Cruz. Victoria's heart stopped. Carmen Cruz looked like someone fighting a war. Thin, pale, wearing a head wrap that covered hair loss of chemo, but with eyes that blazed with fierce determination. She walked into Victoria's office and stopped when she saw the blood on Victoria's lip. He hit you? Not a question. He was upset. It's okay. It's not okay. Carmen's voice was stronger than her body looked. Daniel called me from security. Told me what he did. I came as soon as I could. She paused. He also told me what you said. About the insurance denial. About company policy. Victoria's chest tightened. Carmen, I need you to know something. Carmen sat down carefully, like her bones hurt. Daniel is a good man. The best man I've ever known. But these past few months have broken him. Watching me die, feeling helpless, it's turned him into someone I barely recognize. I understand. Do you? Carmen's gaze was piercing. Do you understand what it's like to watch someone you love crumble because they can't save you? To hear your 8-year-old daughter ask if heaven is playgrounds? To know that the only thing standing between you and a chance at life is a spreadsheet in some corporate office. The words hit like bullets. I do, actually. Victoria's voice cracked. My mother died of ovarian cancer when I was 12. Experimental treatment could have saved her. Insurance said no. I watched my father beg, plead, mortgage our house. It wasn't enough. She died 6 weeks before the treatment got FDA approval. Carmen's eyes widened. That's why I built Rivera Tech. To create medical devices that would save lives. To make treatments accessible. But somewhere along the way, the business became more important than the mission. The board cares more about shareholders than patients. And Victoria stopped. I let it happen. I got so focused on growth and success that I forgot why I started. Until you. Victoria pulled out her phone, showed Carmen the bank transfer confirmation. Your treatment is paid for. Starts tomorrow morning. Dr. Richardson is one of the best immunotherapy specialists in the country. You have a real chance, Carmen. Carmen stared at the screen. That's your personal account. Yes. Why? Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Because you deserve a chance. Because Victoria's voice broke completely. Because if someone had done this for my mother, she might still be alive. And I can't change the past, but I can change your future. Carmen was crying now, silently, tears streaming down her face. Daniel doesn't know. No. He slapped me before I could tell him. Oh, God. Carmen covered her mouth. He must be destroyed. He would never, if he'd known. I know. Carmen, I don't want to press charges. I understand why he did it. I just need him to know the truth. He's at home, probably thinking his life is over. Probably thinking he just assaulted his boss and destroyed any chance of... Carmen stood shakily. I need to go to him. Tell him. He needs to know you're not the villain he thinks you are. Wait. Victoria grabbed her purse. I'll drive you. We'll tell him together. Daniel Cruz lived in a modest house in Kendall, the kind of neighborhood where kids played basketball in driveways and neighbors knew each other's names. Victoria's Tesla looked absurdly out of place parked in front. He's going to be angry, Carmen warned. At himself, mostly. Daniel has never been violent. This will kill him inside. Then we'll help him understand he didn't know the full story. They walked to the door. Carmen had a key. Inside, they found Daniel sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands, looking like a man contemplating the end of his world. He looked up when they entered, saw Victoria, went white. Carmen, what? Why did you bring her here? Because you need to hear something, Daniel. Carmen sat down beside him, took his hand. Victoria paid for my treatment. All of it, from her personal account. She did it this morning, before you came to her office. Daniel blinked. What? $340,000. Wired to Jackson Memorial. Treatment starts tomorrow. Carmen squeezed his hand. She saved my life, Daniel. And you slapped her for it. The color drained from Daniel's face completely. He looked at Victoria, horror and disbelief warring in his eyes. But you said, the insurance denial, you fired me. I fired you so you could be with Carmen without worrying about work, Victoria said quietly. The insurance denial came from the board, not me. I've been fighting them for weeks. And when they wouldn't budge, I paid for myself. Why didn't you tell me? I was trying to, but you were angry, rightfully angry, and then she gestured to her still swollen lip. Daniel stood abruptly, stumbled back. Oh, God. Oh, God, I hit you. His voice cracked completely. Victoria, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. I thought I didn't know. I know. I need to turn myself in. I assaulted you. In your office. In front of witnesses. I'll go to jail. I deserve to go to jail. You're not going to jail, Daniel. But you're going to be with your wife. Victoria's voice was firm. You're going to take her to her treatment tomorrow. You're going to be there for every appointment, every procedure, every moment. And you're going to believe, really believe, that she's going to beat this. Sometimes the people we judge most harshly are fighting battles we know nothing about. Sometimes the villain in someone's story is actually their savior, and we just don't have the full picture. Maybe that's why jumping to conclusions is so dangerous. Why assuming the worst about people can make us do things we'd never imagine ourselves capable of? If you've ever judged someone without knowing their truth, if you've ever realized too late that you were wrong about everything, maybe you understand why Daniel's breaking down right now. Why truth matters more than our assumptions ever will. Daniel collapsed into a chair, sobbing. The kind of crying that comes from shame and relief and overwhelming emotion all at once. Carmen wrapped her arms around him. It's okay. We're okay. She's giving us a chance. I don't deserve. Yes, you do, Victoria interrupted. Daniel, you're a good man who's been pushed past breaking point. I understand that. The system is broken. The board is broken. I'm trying to fix it. By resigning, Victoria blinked. How did you? Security guard. He heard the board meeting through the door. Words already spreading through the company. Daniel wiped his eyes. Victoria, you can't resign. Rivera Tech needs you. Those insurance policies. You're the only one fighting to change them. Not anymore. Victoria pulled out her phone, showed him the foundation documents Marcus had sent. I'm starting something new. A foundation that pays for treatments insurance companies deny. I'm putting $50 million into it. It'll help thousands of families like yours. Carmen gasped. $50 million? It's not enough, but it's a start. You're giving up your company to help strangers? I'm not giving up anything. I'm finally doing what I should have done years ago. Putting people before profit. Purpose before position. Daniel stood, walked over to Victoria. For a moment, she tensed. But he just held out his hand. I'm sorry for hitting you, for the things I said, for not trusting that you were trying to help. Victoria shook his hand. I'm sorry I couldn't fix it from inside the system. I'm sorry you had to fight so hard. I'm sorry for everything. What happens now? Now! Victoria smiled, small, tired, but real. Now you take Carmen home. Tomorrow you take her to treatment. And she paused, I start rebuilding. Not a company. Something better. Something that actually matters. By 4 p.m., the entire company knew. CEO Victoria Lennox had resigned. She'd paid for Daniel Cruz's wife's treatment out of pocket. She was starting a foundation. And Daniel Cruz had assaulted her, then been forgiven. The board called an emergency meeting. Victoria walked into that conference room one last time, lips still swollen, carrying a box of her personal items. James Whitmore looked smug. Well, I suppose this is goodbye. Victoria, I hope your little charity project brings you satisfaction, because you've just destroyed your career. I haven't destroyed anything. I've freed myself. From what? From people like you. Victoria set down her box. I spent 5 years building this company into something revolutionary. We saved lives. We innovated. We mattered. But you, all of you, turned it into just another corporation that cares more about quarterly earnings than the people those earnings are built on. That's business. That's inhumane. And I won't be part of it anymore. Raymond spoke up. Victoria, before you go, there's something you should know. After you left this morning, I called an emergency shareholder meeting. Victoria's heart sank. Raymond, the majority shareholders voted. James and Patricia are off the board, effective immediately. I'm the new chairman. He smiled. And our first act? Approving your insurance reform proposal. Full coverage for experimental treatments. Patient advocacy programs. The whole thing. Victoria stared. What? Turns out, most of our shareholders aren't sociopaths. When I explained what happened, what you did for Daniel Cruz, what you were willing to sacrifice, they agreed. This company needs to go back to its roots, and we want you to lead us there. I resigned. We reject your resignation. Unanimous vote. Raymond pushed the document across the table. New contract. Full operational control. The board advises, but you decide. Your insurance reforms implemented immediately. And, he paused, a board commitment to match your foundation funding. Rivera Tech will contribute $50 million to the Rivera Healthcare Advocacy Foundation annually. Victoria couldn't speak. So what do you say? Raymond asked, will you stay? 6 months later. Victoria stood in Whole Foods on Biscayne Boulevard. Same store, same time, 6:47 a.m., reaching for organic blueberries. Rough night. She turned, the same young employee from 6 months ago, smiling. Actually, Victoria said, the best night I've had in years. It was true. Last night, the Rivera Healthcare Advocacy Foundation had approved its 100th treatment. 100 families, 100 chances at life. And Carmen Cruz? In remission, the immunotherapy had worked. She was home, healthy, watching her daughter play soccer and planning a 10th anniversary with her husband. Daniel had come back to Rivera Tech 3 months ago, not as VP of Operations, but as Director of Patient Advocacy. His job, making sure what happened to his family never happened to anyone else's. And Victoria? She was still CEO, but different now, better. The kind of leader who remembered that behind every insurance claim was a human being, a family, a life worth saving. Her phone buzzed. Text from Carmen. Treatment worked for Mrs. Martinez, too. Her daughter called crying with joy. Thank you for giving us our mom back. Victoria smiled. This was what success felt like. You know, the Whole Foods employee said, you look different than you did 6 months ago. How so? Happier. Like you're actually living instead of just going through motions. I am, Victoria said. For the first time in a long time, I really am. She paid for her blueberries, still didn't look at the price, and walked out into Miami's sunshine that felt warmer than it had in years. That afternoon, Victoria's assistant Maya knocked on her office door. Ms. Lennox? There's someone here to see you. Says it's important. Who? Daniel Cruz. And he brought his whole family. Victoria's heart warmed. Send them in. Daniel walked in with Carmen, glowing with health, hair growing back, and their daughter, Sophia, 8 years old with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. We wanted to thank you, Daniel said, properly, not over phone or email, but in person. You don't need to. Yes, we do. Carmen stepped forward. Victoria, you gave me my life back. You gave Sophia her mother. You gave Daniel hope when he'd lost everything. Words aren't enough, but they're all we have. So, thank you for everything. Sophia held out a drawing, crayon and construction paper, the kind of art only a child could make. It showed 3 figures, a tall woman in a business suit and a family of 3, all holding hands under a rainbow. That's you, Sophia explained, pointing to the business suit figure. You're our hero. Mommy says you're like a superhero, but for sick people. Victoria took the drawing with trembling hands. Sophia, this is beautiful. Thank you. Will you hang in your office? So you remember we love you? I'll hang it right there. Victoria pointed to the wall behind her desk, where anyone visiting would see it, front and center. They stayed for an hour, drinking coffee and hot chocolate for Sophia, talking about Carmen's treatment, about Sophia's school, about the foundation helping other families. When they left, Victoria hung the drawing exactly where she'd promised, then sat at her desk, looking at it, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The Rivera Healthcare Advocacy Foundation Gala was held at the Perez Art Museum, Miami, overlooking Biscayne Bay. 500 guests, donors, patients, families, medical professionals, all gathered to celebrate 1 year of the foundation saving lives. Victoria wore a simple black dress and the only jewelry that mattered, a pin Sophia had made her from clay, painted rainbow colors. The highlight of the evening, testimonials from families the foundation had helped. Carmen Cruz took the stage, healthy and radiant. 1 year ago, I was dying. I had 6 months to live. Maybe. My family was drowning in medical bills and desperation. And then someone we thought was the enemy, became our angel. She looked directly at Victoria. Victoria Lennox gave me my life back. Not because she had to, not because it benefited her, but because she believed every person deserved a chance. Because she knew that profit margins matter less than human lives. Because she had the courage to stand up to a system that values money over people. The room erupted in applause. The Rivera Healthcare Advocacy Foundation has helped over 200 families this year. 200 people who are alive because someone cared enough to fight for them. Victoria, on behalf of everyone here, everyone you've helped, everyone whose lives you've saved, thank you. Victoria stood, walked to the stage, and Carmen hugged her, long, tight, the kind of hug that said you gave me my future. When Victoria took the microphone, she looked out at the sea of faces. Patients she'd helped, families she'd saved, lives she'd changed. I didn't start Rivera Tech to be rich. I started it because my mother died from a disease that could have been treated if insurance had just said yes. For years, I forgot that. I got caught up in growth, success, all the things a business world tells you matter. And then a man walked into my office desperate and broken, and reminded me what actually matters. She found Daniel in the crowd. He was crying. That man slapped me, and it was the wake-up call I needed. Sometimes it takes getting hit, literally, to remember who you are and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. So, Daniel, she looked directly at him. Thank you for reminding me that people are more important than policies, that compassion matters more than quarterly earnings, that the most important question we can ask isn't can we afford this, but how can we afford not to? The applause was deafening. Maybe you're watching this and wondering if one person can really make a difference, if standing up against a broken system actually matters, if choosing compassion over comfort is worth the cost. Let me tell you something. It is, every single time. Because systems don't change until people change them. Because corporations don't develop hearts until the people running them remember theirs. Because the world gets better one courageous choice at a time. If this story reminded you that humanity matters more than profit, that love is stronger than policy, that one person choosing to do the right thing can save hundreds of lives, then maybe you're exactly the kind of person who makes the world better too. After the gala, Victoria stood on the museum terrace, looking out Biscayne Bay glittering under Miami stars. Raymond joined her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. You did it. Changed everything. We did it. You backed me when the board wanted my head. Because you were right. About all of it. He paused. You know what the best part is? Rivera Tech stock is up 40% since we implemented the reforms. Turns out, treating people like human beings is actually good for business. Who knew? Victoria laughed. Who knew? So what's next? Foundation successful. Companies thriving. You've revolutionized corporate health care. Where does Victoria Lennox go from here? She thought about it. About Carmen, healthy and alive. About Sophia's drawing hanging in her office. About 200 families who had futures they wouldn't have had without her courage. Forward, she said simply. Always forward. There are more families to help. More lives to save. More people who need someone to fight for them. You're going to change the world, aren't you? I'm going to try. They clinked glasses, and Victoria felt something she'd been missing for years. Purpose. Not the kind that came from quarterly earnings or Forbes covers, but the kind that came from knowing your life mattered, that you'd use your privilege and power to lift others up, that you'd taken a moment of violence and turned it into a movement of love. Behind her, through museum windows, she could see the gala continuing, patients dancing with doctors, families celebrating with donors, a community built on a radical idea that every life was worth saving. And somewhere in that crowd, Daniel Cruz was dancing with his wife, holding her close, grateful for every moment they had together. 20 minutes. That's all it had taken for everything to change. 20 minutes from a slap to salvation, from rage to redemption, from corporate cold to human warmth. Victoria Lennox had been slapped in her office by a desperate man. And 20 minutes later, everything changed. Not just for one family, for hundreds, for an entire system, for a CEO who remembered that the best measure of success isn't what you build for yourself. It's what you give away to others.
Thank you so much for watching today's story. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe because we've got even more incredible stories coming your way tomorrow. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next.